Just like our goal here on the Game Time Guru is to help you see sports through a different lens, it's the same thing for our guest today. Granted, it's actually literal, as he's a sports photographer. You don't want to miss this episode of the Game Time Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time! Boom.
If you're sick of the mainstream sports outlets, well, so was I. So I started my own show. I'm Shane Larson, and this is the Game Time Guru. It's different than other talk shows. I'm providing a panoramic view on sports so you can see them through a different lens. So buckle up and let's go. What is going on, everybody? Welcome out to the Game Time Guru podcast. This week is going to be an awesome interview once again as we're bringing on a sports photographer who does work for the Atlanta Falcons. But it's not just about doing the work for the Atlanta Falcons, it's how he actually got there. And so you guys are going to love to see what he has to say and what got him into the photography realm, because he's a sports fan out of Chicago and actually started as a coach. So you're going to hear the whole story. You're going to love it. It's Torrey Fields coming on the show today to talk about his journey and what his goal is as a sports photographer and how that actually helps us in sports media. So before we get started, I want you guys to remember to make sure to subscribe to the show and leave me a review. Please go on to Apple Podcasts or whichever podcast platform that you're listening on. Subscribe to the show. It helps me out. And then leave me a review. It helps me know how I'm doing. And it also helps when other people are trying to find a show to listen to. If they see a review on the page, they are more prone to actually listen to it. So it would help me out. That's the way that I ask that my listeners give back to me. I'm excited for a lot of things. I want to give you a couple announcements, what's happening with the podcast and other podcasts coming down the pipeline. So, guys, I've referenced Nation's Best Football before. Bob Smith and I have been, collaborating for the last couple of weeks, about 2 months now, and we're going to be launching a new show that you guys need to listen to as well. So not only be paying attention to the Game Time Guru podcast, but be listening for our new show. It's going to be the Nation's Best Ballers and Recruits podcast, where our intention is going to be to interview some awesome ballers, just to say that. I'm not going to give you too many details yet until it actually launches, but we have that in the works, and we're getting that down the pipeline, so be on the lookout for that. I'm also going to be hosting a college football show for Kyle Lamb over at Unscripted Ohio, and so once a week we will do a college football show, about 30 minutes to 45 minutes long, and kind of give you guys some information specifically on college football. So it's going to be some awesome stuff. We're going to be talking about, we're going to be interviewing people on the Game Time Guru, the Nation's Best Ballers and Recruits podcast, as well as the new podcast for the Unscripted Ohio podcast network that he's got going on over there. And more details are to come. But I don't want to bore you guys anymore with the housekeeping items. I want to get into this interview because it's the first time I've brought on a sports photographer onto the show. And I've always kind of had this idea of like bringing someone like this on because they too, just like I said in the intro, they too want to help us see sports through a different lens. They want to capture the perfect moment. And a lot of athletes love seeing the action shots because they tell stories. Like the athlete knows what was going on when that shot happened, and it gives the fans a different perspective on it too. And it's really cool and unique to see. We don't even realize how much we utilize sports photography and sports media. So even as fans, So I'm excited to bring on Torrey Fields. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this interview. And so buckle up, get a drink, whatever you're going to be doing. If you're driving to work, awesome. Turn it up, focus in, and enjoy the interview. What's up, everybody? Welcome out to the Game Time Guru podcast. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction, we've got a guy who's on the show who is going to help you see sports through a different lens, but he's literally doing that through photography. And I'm excited to have him on. This is Torrey Fields from Fields Vision Photography. Torrey, thanks so much for joining the show. Now, Torrey, you did mention to me, like, we're going to rewind this all the way back to find out what your love of sports came from. And, you reside in Atlanta right now, but you're actually from Chicago. So let's talk about from the very beginning how you became a sports fan and, talk about your love for the sports teams in Chicago.
Yeah, growing up in Chicago in the early 80s, the mid-80s rather, it was dominated by the Chicago Bears. They owned the city, and I was the biggest Walter Payton fan you could find. And although I only seen him at the end of his career, I loved everything about him. When I was playing like Little League football or Pee Wee football, he helped me get a lot of head injuries due to the fact that he never ran out of bounds. So I said, if Walter didn't run out of bounds, I'm not going to run out of bounds. So I took a lot of blows to the head, but no, I just grew up, a Bears fan, a Bulls fan, and that was also the era of Michael Jordan, Ryan Sandberg with the Cubs. Chicago was just a great sports city, and being in the 80s, we were starving for championships. 85 Bears came, took over the city, took over the nation, rather. And ever since then, I just have a strong passion for football, all other sports as well, but mainly football.
So, Torrey, you're from Chicago, so I have to naturally ask this question. I'm a Utah Jazz fan. Did MJ push off?
No, it was rumors. He just helped Russell with the movement of going towards his left, and yeah, he pulled up. But truth be told, though, I had met a guy in Atlanta that back when the Bulls were winning all those games, I said as a Bulls fan, I felt like we were about to lose every game, and he was telling me how he felt like we were about to win every game. But those Utah series, though, I felt like we're the toughest championships to get, though. So they had a great team: Karl Malone, John Stockton, Jeff Hornacek, Russell. Was it Greg Ostertag, the man in the middle?
Oh yeah, Greg Ostertag, man in the middle, right there, man, the most athletic guy on the court. I'll be honest with you, man. I tell everybody this. I was a little kid at the time. I was in fourth grade when we lost the second championship, and that ruined me for like a week because I truly believed back then that the Jazz were a better team than the Bulls. And I know people call me crazy, but they had home court advantage for a reason. They were a good team that year, and they were stacked. And I thought that was our year. And go figure, we haven't made it back yet. You know what I mean? So I thought that was going to be the time. That we could actually pull a championship out. So, yeah, I'm devastated by the push-off. You know what, though, Torrey? It's okay because if I really think about it, superstars get away with a lot of stuff. So you can get a push-off to win the championship, right?
Oh, yeah, everybody had their legal move back then. Lonzo Mourning, Patrick Ewing, and Dikembe Mutombo loved to take 3 steps towards the middle. They traveled every time.
Yeah, that's just called a Euro step now. That's what they've translated that into.
Exactly.
So, Torrey, you mentioned that, you weren't into photography immediately. It kind of evolved over time. So let's talk about, the beginning and where it all started at. You mentioned to me before that it kind of started out in the coaching realm. So I'm curious to hear, how this all, evolved over time. So let's talk about that for a second.
Well, initially I went to school because I love to talk sports. And I was in high school, they called me a walking sports almanac. I used to just throw out numbers and I knew at all the dunk contest winners from the ABA, from Dr. J to the mid-'90s at that case. I knew all the dunk contest winners, and I could just spit them out just like that. So they just called me a walking sports almanac. And I would like to I talk sports with my uncles and things of that nature. And they was like, you know what, you should go and get into broadcasting. So I was like, I didn't do it initially right out of high school, but I ended up going to this school called Connecticut School of Broadcasting. And I started my own podcast as well, and it was called The Torrey Allen Show. And we dived into a lot of sports as well. But I was coaching youth football, and I kind of swayed into photography. I was helping coach the offensive line, and I would see a quarterback make a play with a running back, wide receiver, whomever. They'd make a play. I'm like, man, that would have been great if somebody could have captured that moment. Video is great, but sometimes pictures, can tell a very vivid story. And so I ended up the girl that I was dating at the time, she bought me a Kodak EasyShare camera, and I thought I was doing big things. And I didn't know anything about any type of camera, so I take pictures, and the parents were liking them. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can. This is something. But it still didn't dawn on me. And I don't think I've told you this, but I felt like it was always in me. One thing, and I'm going backwards a little bit, one thing that was big to me was I used to collect Sports Illustrated, and not Sports Illustrated magazines, Slam magazines, Sporting News, anything that had pictures. I used to make my own little scrapbook. I had posters. I had Michael Jordan posters, Walter Payton, Sandberg, Andre Dawson. But I loved the action shots of the posters. Baseball cards. I had Jose Canseco rookie card from Upper Deck. And Ken Griffey Jr. I liked the image of the card, but it never dawned on me that I could be the one that was taking those pictures. So now fast forward back to youth football, I was taking pictures of the parents were liking them, and they ended up buying some of the pictures. So I was like, okay, cool. Still didn't really hit me. And then one day I was just bored missing football, and I just ended up starting going to the Falcons camp, and I'll take pictures and I'll post. I end up posting them, and then they hit me on my Instagram, my DM, and asked me if I had more. So I was like, yeah, I didn't have it that time, but I could be back tomorrow and take some pictures. So in a sense, it started growing from there.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned that because I was an avid collector of basketball cards. I still have my books. Got tons of them, and I like to go back and look at them sometimes to see who was a big name in the league back then in 94, 95, 96 timeframe when I was really into collecting cards. And it's also interesting because, I love going back and seeing action photos. Like that, I used to read Sports Illustrateds and Slam magazines all the time, like religiously, just to get my sports information and such. And I also, I'll go back and do the Uncle Rico thing sometimes and actually go to my yearbook and kind of look through stuff. And I've caught myself looking at the basketball photos, and there's a couple photos of me in there, some action shots, and I remember what was going on back then because the shot was taken. I know why I was wearing a knee brace, who we were playing, and I can remember those games. And it's interesting. That's why I love photography for that matter. When a good photographer, especially like a sports photographer in this example, a sports photographer takes a good action shot. It's good. Like the players love it, the fans love it because you're bringing the game back to them, and it's awesome. And I'm curious when you're trying to get the perfect action shot, what are some techniques that you use? Like how do you get the person that's in front of you to basically do what you want them to do without them knowing, because you're trying to get action shots? Like, how do you capture that moment, Torrey?
Well, one thing I've always felt, and I tell a lot of people who are who's getting into photography, your eye is the best equipment that you have, and I just think I've been blessed with a great eye to scope out certain angles, and it helped that I played sports as well. So I try to stay ahead of the action. Like, for example, if I want a running back to, if he has a chance to hit the hole and break free from the defensive linemen and get into the linebacker safety area, I like to be 20 yards ahead of the line of scrimmage so I can possibly get that shot. And but sometimes the best shots are the players on the bench. If they're frustrated because they missed the block, and this is dealing with the youth, and for the pros as well, but in particular the youth, you see the raw emotion on their face, and I try to capture those moments. Obviously, when they celebrate, that's another a great shot. But as far as with the action, typically try to stay ahead of the action. Trying to be in front of the wide receiver or the running back, quarterback, so I can get their face. Sometimes if you're focusing on the wide receivers, you might have to go back because they go back behind the line of scrimmage so you can get their face. Because if you're running a route, you got to turn around. Especially depending on most routes, you got to turn around and, in a sense, face the line of scrimmage, face the quarterback. So those are a few things that I try to do, but it's all about your eye. You just have to have an eye for it. That's the best equipment to have. You can have the top of the line camera, but if you don't know what you're looking for or mapping it out, it's really useless.
I'm also curious, Torrey, about your knowledge of the game, right? So you're a sports fan. You went to school for broadcasting, and this, you're a walking sports almanac, like you said. Does that help you in understanding, situational football, right? Like it's third down, so you understand what that team's tendencies are, what they might be doing. Third and long, obviously, it might be a passing down, and so you might get in a position for them to be throwing a pass. So does that help you? Does your knowledge of the game help you in trying to get the correct shot?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And in case in point, there's cases where you're in a goal line situation, and I say, you know what, I'm gonna go into the corner of the end zone because a lot of times they like to throw a little fade route into that corner. So I try to get over there so I can capture that shot. I mean, sometimes you're playing odds. You're gambling in a sense. You're playing the odds because they can easily just run a dive play right up the middle, and you're like, well, crap, I'm over here, and the action happened over there. So you try to pay attention to the personnel. Case in point, like shooting the Falcons, If I'm seeing Julio Jones in the game, and they're not running the goal line set, like, well, I'm going to go into the corner because there's a high probability they're going to try to pass. Now, if they got 3 tight ends set in there, then I'm going to try to work my way towards the middle because there's a high probability that they're going to run. Sometimes you get faked out, but you try to pay attention to personnel. I'm guessing as much as the defensive coordinator. So the knowledge of the game I think is key as well.
That's so awesome, man. I want to get into your professional realm now. Like you're taking pictures for the Atlanta Falcons. That's awesome. Like you've utilized this as a platform to get you to be able to be around the sport that you love and be able to enhance that sport for not only the players but the fans as well. And I'm curious now that you're around some big name athletes, and who are some of your favorite athletes you've been around since you've been covering the Falcons, whether it be from the Falcons or it's an opponent that they've played that you've been able to cover as well.
Well, again, growing up as a Chicago Bears fan, I always felt that you have one team, that's it. Like, I'm a Cubs fan. I can't cheer for any other team, not even the White Sox, especially not the White Sox. So, shooting, and is because I'm located in Atlanta. I shoot for a media outlet called Core 360. So we cover multiple teams. I just so happen to shoot for the area that I'm in, and which is Atlanta. And I used to not be an Atlanta fan whatsoever. And again, I had that rule, one team. But being around a lot of the players and getting to know some of them, like I've gotten the chance to meet Devontae Freeman and actually work with him outside of work. He's a great, outstanding guy, very humble guy. And I don't want to say it's surprising because when you see guys at this status and the fanfare that they get, I can almost understand how that can be overwhelming or frustrating to deal with people, but he is an extremely humble guy. I've met Vic Beasley's another guy who's a great character guy that I've been around. Ricardo Allen. Julio is very quiet, and Matt Ryan to me doesn't get enough credit. So those are some of the players I can name off the top of my head that I've definitely have taken. They have made me. Falcons fans, just can't tell anybody. I know you have a lot of listeners. Just don't tell anybody. But they have made me actually enjoy this team, and just because they're outstanding guys, they got outstanding characters, and not just them. There's several other players too. Kwame Shorts for the Carolina, Cam Newton. Now Cam is different. I never realized how competitive he was until I was able to be on the field and see him, and I remember real quick. I did a Carolina Falcons game two or 3 years ago in Carolina. So I was helping this young lady out because she had a camera, but it was kind of windy at night. This is a couple hours after the game, and she was just trying to do a recap. So I just helped hold the camera still for her. I looked to the corner and I saw Cam Newton out there, and he had like 20 kids, and he was throwing the ball, catch, and playing football with them. And this is a couple of hours after the game, and it kind of shocked me. I'm like, they do a lot of charitable work, and you see that on TV, but just to see him actually physically interacting with these kids and like basically in the grass with them, and I thought it was really awesome, and I gained a lot more respect for him than I had versus just seeing him on TV.
Interesting that you mentioned that because, I will catch myself sometimes, like if there's a player I don't necessarily like, and I don't really have reasons to dislike any player besides their, play on the field. But like if I don't like a player and I watch a documentary on that player, Dwight Howard was one of them. Tom Brady was another. Like those players, like I watch these things and I see how they are as human beings and how they treat others in the community. And I'm like, shoot, that's a good guy. So like when you're talking about Cam Newton, that's kind of what it reminded me of. Now, you cover football at the highest level, the National Football League with the Atlanta Falcons. Now, obviously, I think that's a lot of people's dream, but you started, and you understand that where you began, and that was, coaching, and you were at the youth level, and you still enjoy doing that. But what is your favorite level of football to cover still? Like, I mean, I know now knowing what you know and being where you've been, what's your favorite level of football to cover?
Well, I mean, it's the professional. That is awesome, and I'm very thankful and very fortunate to be able to to cover that. But I would never forget where I came from as far as started off in youth football. And again, I just love. I was actually out on the field a cup yesterday, actually, and I was watching the 7-year-olds and the 7-year-olds prepare of. They're going through the evaluations, and it's just something about the pureness of the game. There's not money involved. They're out there for having fun, to have fun and to compete. But at the end of the day, just to have fun. And I don't know. It's just something that holds something real big in my heart. Is the way. I don't know. It's just really hard to explain, but I just love youth football. I just think it's awesome, and maybe it's because it's not all about the next contract or the Super Bowl. We all want to win. We all want to win that championship, but at the end of the day, we want to go out there, compete, have fun, and be with our friends. And I think that's why I love youth sports so much.
Totally understand that, because there's a completely different passion for the game at that level. I mean, they're still learning the game. They're learning the basics of the game, but there's a passion for it. And like you mentioned, it's not just playing for the next contract. It's playing for the love of the game and understanding the game and everything like that. So I totally understand. That's awesome. Now, Torrey, I mean, football's taking you a lot of places, right? Or sorry, photography is taking you a lot of places, rather. And I'm curious, where do you see yourself going in the next, 5 years with this? Would you like to be covering the Falcons still, or would you, eventually like to get to Chicago and be able to cover your favorite team in the Bears?
Well, I think I would, because when you love something, it's not a job to you. So I can do this till I'm 90 years old, as long as my body stays healthy enough to where I can still go out there and shoot, because it's just a passion that I have. I love to shoot, to bring a lot of the fans, in this case, a lot of Atlanta Falcons fans, and whoever they play. I bring their fans a little closer to the action. Not everyone is able to afford to go to the stadium and see their team play. And if they know me or if they follow me on social media, I give them the opportunity to get closer to the action than they might have been just on regular TV. You see a lot of these guys on TV, but it feels so far away. But hopefully through the actions of my photography, I can bring them closer. So I can do this forever. 5 years from now, I would love to have a whole photography team to be able to bless bless others, in particular the youth, to have that opportunity to get to see their idols and still be professional with it, obviously, but to see their idols and get the opportunity to shoot and take their craft to the next level.
I love it, man. I love it. And you mentioned social media, Torrey. Where can we find you? What's your social media handle so my listeners can find your work and see what you do?
Yes, they can definitely follow me. I'm on Instagram as well as Facebook at Fields Vision, and it has an S in the middle. It's my last name, and I have an interesting story for that as well. It's FIELDSVISION at fieldsvision.com, at Fields Vision on Instagram and on Facebook.
Okay, so you mentioned there's a story. All right, let's hear the story. I want to hear the story behind Fields Vision.
I got bored. I was missing football, and I said, I heard the Falcons training camp is free. I didn't know any of the team's training camps were free to the public. So I went there, and again, I was taking pictures, and I was sending them to the players when they would DM me. So, but it was under a different Instagram name. It was under Chicago Winds. So I was taking the pictures, and then I met this guy in media who was interested in me working. He figured out who I was by how I posted the picture from where I was standing. He figured out who I was, and he was like, well, come here. I want to, get you to shoot on the media side. And I was like, well, I'm not media. And he said, that's fine. We'll talk to him. So I go in there, and he was like, okay, what's your name? I said, Torrey Fields. And he was like, okay, who's your media outlet? And I was like, Fields Vision. And they was like, oh, okay. And they was like, all right. I was like, yeah, that's work. Fields Vision.
Absolutely love it, man. Absolutely love it. So if you guys are, paying attention to this and you want to see some awesome photography, make sure to go check out Fields Vision on Instagram and Facebook. Go check it out. See his work. We'll link it here in the description of the podcast as well. So if you guys are listening on to Apple Podcasts or any other platform, make sure to check out the Instagram handle and Facebook page. Now, I know that you have to have, like, as athletes, we have that favorite memory. We have that favorite, let's say like in basketball, the favorite shot that you remember, whether it was the best game or whatever it was. As a photographer, what's your favorite shot that you've ever taken on any level for that matter, whether it be youth, high school, whatever, all the way up through the pros? What's your favorite shot that you've taken as a photographer?
My favorite shot, it actually goes back to youth football. It was a couple of years ago. Again, I'm in Georgia. I'm in Gwinnett County. There was this team called the Lawrenceville Black Knights. And I took a picture. It was pouring down rain, and they delayed some of the games. And I had on some sneakers that I probably should have been wearing out there in the mud. So I stood almost in the press box for the football field. And I so happened to look down, and I saw this kid, and he was just sitting on the bench, and he was by himself. He wasn't with his other teammates. And I said, oh, wow, that's a great shot. So I'm shooting from above him, and I shoot down, and he has mud all over him. The field is muddy, and he's sitting on this wet bench. And that is my all-time favorite picture. I posted it on Facebook. Matter of fact, I believe I shared it with you as well. Mm-hmm. It's my favorite shot that I've ever taken. The crazy part about it looks like he lost or is losing, but they were up by 20.
That's interesting you said that, because I did see the photo. You sent it with me. You shared it to me, and it looks like he lost. Like that shot does look like he lost, but there's a story behind it. In reality, they're winning, and he's just cold and probably wants to go home or whatever, and you just caught him at the right moment. So it's interesting. I love that, man. And Torrey, before we sign off, just let us know what's any words of advice that you have for anyone in this industry, anything that you know now that you didn't know before, or any kind of words of advice you can give us before we sign off for the show.
Well, I believe I spoke to you and told you that I'm older than most of the people that I'm around. I'm in my early 40s. Never stop dreaming. It's never too late to get into your field. I didn't get into photography until my mid to late 30s, and it's taken me to places so quick and so awesome. So it takes a long time to be an overnight sensation. I'm not saying that I'm overnight sensation or a sensation for that matter, but it sometimes it takes a long time. And if you don't know what you want to do right now, you have time to figure it out. So just keep pressing and working hard, and I'm sure it's going to pan out.
Thank you so much. And I know I have a lot of listeners that are, on their own entrepreneurial journey right now, and so they'll definitely enjoy what you had to say right there. And I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this was Torrey Fields from Fields Vision Photography. He's a sports photographer covering the Atlanta Falcons. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And Torrey, thank you so much for joining us. You guys know the drill. Make sure you're subscribed to the show so you guys can get all the content, and we'll be back next week for you. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.